Hi everyone, this is Sean and today we are talking about the new Zolar lights. Zolar lights were launched last year by the same company that did the Z-Can, and as usual they have put in a lot of detail and effort. Now today's short video is really about our initial experience with the lights, and I just want to be upfront that we have very little experience with panel lights. Because when we started with panel lights, they were really bad. I got some cheap Chinese panels that were having this horrendous green cast. And years on, I came back with LED lighting via COB lights, which I really love and use for all our productions. So when Zolar reached out to give us the opportunity to test these three lights, I grabbed it immediately, and I thought to myself, when and why would I want to use these over the COB? So before I go there, I just want to quickly cover what's available in this set. So what you see in front of me here is the Vega 30 Cinema or 30C. And the 30C is really a RGB AW. So it can do HSI, so the full color spectrum. And the other two series being the Toliman 30S and 30C, the S being the studio version, which is not as bright and comes with a slightly narrower beam angle. So the Toliman 30C has a similar beam angle as the Vega 30C. Alright, and those two Toliman, they are pure bicolor only. If you need a really bright one, go for the Toliman 30C, and I can tell you from experience it's impressively bright for a 1x1. But this guy here is the king of the hill. It's no slouch, it's very close behind when you compare the output for 5600 kelvins. If you're doing more of 3200 kelvins, then the Toliman 30C will be the brightest one. Alright, so let's have a quick look at the panel. So this is a 1x1 panel, as I said. And when you look at the design language, it is pretty slick and quite well built. So over here is the control interface panel, where there are just a few buttons. This one being the Vega has more buttons because you can control HSI mode, where you have hue, saturation, and intensity. And all you need to do is just press the button to change the what you want to change. Obviously, I can use the app as well, which I'll cover shortly, and I can get to where I want. There are several modes, like every light in the market now, you have special effects, and of course you can do the CCT and even a gel mode. Alright, so this is the interface area. This handle, they are more useful than you think. On set is so useful. They are not too heavy, by the way, on their own. On the bottom here are the power inputs. So one of them is for the power brick when using AC power, and this one is the interface for a battery using the same power brick. At the bottom here is an interface for a controller. So when I have this boom out of reach, I can either connect that interface to a included controller, yes, it's included, to control it, or I can just use the app, which is very good. Alright, then over here is the on-off switch, which is my main complaint about this unit. This is so well built, but this switch is so small and I always have difficulty finding where the hell is the switch. On the left here are the DMX in and out controls, so you can actually daisy chain them, and RJ45 also for controls. There are 4 rubber corners, and these are very, very useful. These bumpers actually extend to the front as well. So if you put it flat on the floor, as long as the floor has nothing sticking out, you'll be fine. And on top here, if you unlock it and you open up, what you see is that you can pull out this panel, diffusion, which Zolar calls it a Starlist W panel. When you flip it to one side, it has a certain degree, like this one is at 90 degrees diffusion. If you switch it over, you focus the beam to 40 degrees. And here is where the LED arrays are. And if you look at the sideway, there are actually 3 slots, and they're very clever. They allow you to you can mount a honeycomb, and there are 2 options to focus the beam further, and at the furthest slot outwards you can mount a barn door as well. So this is fantastic. And if that doesn't work for you and you want further diffusion, they also have the softbox, which you can mount right in front, which is Velcro strap-on, which I've mounted here on my left. And on this side, you have a single arm yoke where you just loosen this and you can tilt it in any direction. For those who are concerned, you can see there's no issues with the wire if you want to do a bounce from the ceiling. On the back here, you do see that they have this adapter here. And this adapter is really for this purpose if you, for some reason, decide to mount your power ballast, the power brick here. I don't personally like this because it makes the light very back heavy. You can see it wants to go down now, and I much prefer to have it on the ground. I do wish that Zolar can make an adapter that can hook this and we can clamp it onto the C-stand just to make sure that no one trips over it. And you can see here that there is also a power switch on the power brick, and there are just 4 connectors. Basically, you use 2 pairs. One pair is one side to AC, the other side to the light, and then if you use the power from the batteries, then you have to use another battery output cable. Now coming to the app that I want to talk about. The app is basically very solid and useful. If you look here, I didn't cover earlier that there are this MIS switch, master, individual and slave. When you're in the master mode, you can use this one light to be the master, as it says, to control the other 2 lights. All you need to do is switch off all the lights, set whichever one to the master, the rest of the dip switch set it to slave, turn on the master first, then turn on the other 2 or 3 or whatever lights, and they'll pair within 5 seconds. This is very, very convenient and very useful on set because you don't need to think much, it just goes. So you can control the app with this alone, or you can physically switch here and all the lights will gang up and move at the same time. Now, in the situation where you don't want to have all lights dimming at the same time, no problem. The app, you can just manually select whichever light, and it even has a function where you can identify the light, and that particular light will blink. I find this really useful, especially if you have more than 3 lights, so you know exactly which one is what. Okay, so back to that is that the app is very, very stable, and I found it to be working very well with the iOS app. I didn't try it with Android, so I don't know how it is over there, but it's great on an Apple. The next thing that I want to talk about is the color fidelity. So this is really the so-called highlight of this product. So what I learned is that the Chinese manufacturers, they're actually, you can find the LEDs from a few players and they might all be using the same source. But what's different is really the drivers, how the LEDs or the COBs are driven. That is the proprietary technology of the company. And the Zolar guys have decided to do the panel lights and focus a lot on the color rendition, color accuracy. For me, I don't have access to a spectrometer, so I can't tell you that it works or not. I've seen several videos on YouTube at this point in time that they are, but what I can tell you from my own eyes, especially this Vega light, it does look great. The color saturation, when you look at it, I've one other light that is not a renowned brand, and it's very obvious that this one looks way better. But what's interesting is that even in camera, it looks quite close to what I see with my eyes. So from that perspective, I think it's done a good job. I don't have too much issues grading. What you're seeing here, in fact, are also lit by 2 Tolimans at 5600 kelvins. So we decided to use the Zolar in two applications. The first being tight spaces. Now the first set that we took it to was for a dance MV where we had good frontage but very shallow depth. Because we had to move around with the gimbals, I decided that it was not good to set up a COB with a large modifier. And the Zolars came in very handy because we went without any softbox. We just flipped to the Starlist Side B, which is the diffusion panel in front, and that had a spread of about 127 degrees. So I had the Vega on one side and the Toliman 30C on the other side, because both of them have the same spread of 127 degrees with the side B. And the overlap is actually quite good. It's actually quite gradual, and we were able to achieve a nice fill. The other scenarios were for interviews in tight spaces, where we actually use it quite a number of times till now, and it has proved very handy, especially in cases where we really had no space and we had to bring the lights really up close. Like right now, I actually have the light just an arm's length away. It's just out of the camera frame, and it's actually quite acceptable if you have it on the diffusion B side. If you want it a bit softer, obviously you can put a softbox, and even with the softbox, it just pops up a little bit more, less than a meter. So I'd say that the space saving is one of the biggest advantage of the Zolar lights. And of course, if you don't need to put a softbox, like in this case, the deployment is also a lot faster than a COB light. The second scenario I'd say would be for green screen. I often have an issue with a hotspot in the middle. So if you plug in just with the reflector, and then you just pump two lights on the backdrop of a green screen, there will be hotspot areas, and sometimes it creates a bit of issue. But normally you have a talent in front, so it's not too bad. But I would think that if we have two of these Vega 30s with a green gel, so that there's no chance of any reflection of the muslin in the background, this would definitely work very well, especially with the gradual spread and no hotspot. Unfortunately, I only have one Vega 30, so we can't demo that. In conclusion, I think the Zolar is a very interesting product. It fits in a space where there are not so many competitors. If you look at it, there are over 50 brands now, and everybody has a COB light somewhere. And everybody has claims of very high color fidelity and blah blah blah. So this is something that is difficult for small crew like myself to determine. But what I've seen with my own eyes and what is recorded in the camera has been quite pleasing so far. And I'll summarize by saying, first things first, this at a price of USD 799, and the Toliman 30C at $699 and the 30S at $499 is a very competitive price because it comes with everything you need. The control unit is already ready, where you can power it via battery and you don't need to buy additional stuff. Second thing is the color fidelity. Of course, as I said, it has a very good SSI value, and you can see some other YouTubers that have proven it to be very accurate. Third is that the connectivity is very well done, meaning you can either use a master-slave technique where you bypass the app, you have one to control all the lights, or you can of course use the app like everybody else. But the way they do it is a bit different, and I think it's on the positive side in terms of experience. And lastly, the build quality is also very decent for this price point. So if you look at it, the 1x1 panels are a very interesting offering in a very select space. I would say that they are soft, especially if you have a bigger 2x1, where they've already launched the upcoming Blade and the ATC, which are 2x1 models. And the ability to go run and gun and be very quick to go without a softbox and not worry too much about the light being too harsh. I think that's one of the key advantage for me, where I want to do interviews with very little crew, and I don't want to have so many modifiers and blah blah, and I just need to go in quick. So this will fill the gap. Obviously, in terms of power output, the brightness is still behind some of the better COB lights, higher wattage lights, but they can do interviews pretty well. So in terms of my gripes about the system, I think the main one would be the single rotary dial. And I'm so used to having one dedicated dials for the color, temperature, as well as the intensity. So when you have the lights up and then you need to figure out which button to press, especially here, after sometimes it goes into a sleep mode, and then you have to trigger. So now I have the hue mode, then I have to turn this to do the change. But if it's bumped all the way up, you can't tell. So this is a pain. The other thing, of course, it does come with a included remote cable where you can bring it down and adjust easily. But if you have a small crew, just try to set up as little as possible and go quick. So that's a bit of inconvenience. The second inconvenience I'll say is that the firmware update. Yes, it's great that you can do it via the app, but you have to make sure your mobile phone as well as the light are both connected to the same Wi-Fi network. Basically, you need Wi-Fi. You cannot use your data to download the firmware and then send it straight to the light. You need Wi-Fi. So this is something that I hope that Zolar can give us an option not to use that Wi-Fi thing. It's a bit of a hassle, especially if you go to set and your crew forgets to update one light, and that one light cannot be controlled by the app, and it brings a bit of inconvenience. And the last gripe I would say is the bag. The bag is very lightweight, and I love it that it's so lightweight, but the material is very thin, and we punctured a hole the first time we took it out. So I don't know how long the bags will last. I certainly hope they will offer them for sale eventually, but for such a competitive price, I understand they had to cut some corners somewhere. And I'm glad they didn't cut it on the light. So as always, I hope this has been useful. Till the next time.